So what do we want to get to first? What's the Georgia 15 players drafted?
Yeah, and
did they win the national title?
Yes, they did.
How did they win the national title?
Well, because they have the most NFL players. Look, they have 15. And this is going to shoot off into another topic, and I don't mean it to it's easy to pile on the University of Texas, and because we're all fans of schools that don't like them, then it's easy for us to do it too. But this is, I just wanted to be matter of fact about it. Like with O'Shawn Mathis picking Nebraska over Texas. If I'm O'Shawn Mathis, I want a place that's going to be a better shot of going to the NFL. And right now, as bad as Nebraska's been, they had 3 or 4 guys drafted the other day. And if you look at where Texas wants to be, which is where Georgia is, and where they actually are, it's 15-0 draft picks right there.
Yeah, that's stunning when you put it. And Georgia had once-in-a-lifetime type of class. Texas had one of those back in the early 80s, but yeah, a huge class.
You can drop it down to Alabama, it's 12-0, which is really where they want to be, which is Alabama, because everybody, that's what you want to be. You want to be the team that's perennially there in and out. And, guys, we've talked about it on the show all the time about that if Texas gets out on a recruit, that recruit gets a star added. I think they need to, for the good of the University of Texas maybe, get that free star taken away because players are going. Look, Baylor had 6 guys drafted, right? 6 guys. 6 guys drafted, all of whom came to Baylor at a time when Baylor was in dire straits.
Yeah, there was a dumpster fire, unknown, and yet those guys all getting drafted this past weekend.
And so if you're looking at Texas where it gets guys that everybody wants, so the evaluation is either wrong, which means it's wrong for everybody because everybody wants those guys. So it can't be that. It's the development that's bad. So you're going to Baylor and Alabama and Georgia and LSU and Nebraska, for God's sakes, A&M, all these other places around and getting better, and you're going to Texas and getting worse. Steve Sarkisian has a mountain to climb when it comes to that.
Yeah, either worse or they don't get better once they get on campus. And we're not trying to pop on UT because Bijan Robinson could be a top 5 or 10 pick next year. Xavier Worthy, Craig brought that up Friday, perhaps a top 5 or 10 pick the following year, along with others. But it does seem to be weird that they get these players and they are just in such a funk, which maybe they're about to break out of it, which we've said 10 times. But, Craig, your thoughts about they get nobody. They get a couple of guys signed following the draft.
Well, Texas isn't within my top 10 stories from this weekend, but I understand why it's of interest. And it is interesting that they had 0 guys selected. I think they had 5 or 6 undrafted free agents. But, yeah, it speaks to the lack of development that goes on there. I do think there's an element of you go to Texas and there's just supposed to be this automatic of, like, it just translates to wins, just being there. And I think for too long they've had guys who think that you just put on burnt orange and that automatically turns into becoming the next Vince Young or Cedric Griffin or, Cedric Benson or whoever. And, there's just no excuse to not have any draft picks in this class. I mean, you look at their last 5-6 classes and for the most part, they're all pretty much, top 5, top 10, at worst, top 15. And maybe there's an outlier in there. But, there's a lot of factors in play. I think some of it is not even what they're doing so much as what other people are doing, like a Baylor. But, yeah, there's a big mess that's been kind of brewing there for a while in terms of their player development. And, we kind of said this several months ago and had very quickly some UT fans of like, you don't know what you're talking about. Sam Ehlinger got better over his 3 years. Okay, Sam Ehlinger got better. Now name a bunch of other guys because there's not a bunch of other guys. A lot of other guys are just who they were or they're worse than they were when they were in high school. Yeah, that's the part that needs to really be addressed, in my opinion, and that goes into the culture thing and that goes into the whole entitlement thing and all of that. And, it's no secret what their issue's been because we're talking about it and everybody brings it up and talks about the development or the entitlement or whatever. And they know what the issue is, and yet there's still that issue there. And hopefully if you're a Texas fan, Steve Sarkisian can carve that all the way out. I mean, get every last bit of that kind of cancerous thing to the program out of there and then go from there. But there's still some of it lingering, obviously, because, yeah, guys are not across the board getting better like they should be getting better. And that's on Tom Herman. That's on I guess to a lesser extent. I can't put a lot on Sarkisian because he's been there for a year, so it's not like he had a whole lot of time to get these guys ready. But I do think in 2 years, Dave Aranda got Jalen Petrie into a whole nother level of a draft pick. I think there was, guys that maybe in this Baylor class you were expecting to get drafted, but certainly some went higher. Why? Because they developed, because they got developed over their time and they turned into the players they turned into. They didn't just walk in as 4 or 5 stars and then just think that was okay enough. And I don't think that's every mentality of every Longhorn player, but in general, that is the mentality, and that's why you see the result you saw over the weekend.
Go ahead. Cincinnati, by